I get asked once in a while why I bother with certain things, and it's an interesting question about why does anybody bother to do anything? Um, and I've got a very solid career. I love my day job. I've got three kids, middle school and down. Uh, Single dad, busy life, right? So why do a YouTube channel or a Twitter channel or anything else that's sort of aimed at doing something bigger than just, screwing around on the internet after work? Well, especially my YouTube channel is kind of taken on an interesting twist, and it's going in a direction I really like. So, professionally, I work in technology. So, I have a PhD in physics. I work in high tech, particularly these days in artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is kind of where everybody works. But for me, it's a little more than just, oh, I work at an AI company. I actually design and develop these things, right? So we actually kind of work at the end of how do we build a better one? And it's not generative. We're not a chat GPT. We're not, building something that does artwork. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff. We're doing a whole different version of it. It's predictive analytic and who cares? But one of the things that I found throughout my career, whether I was at the university or at the engineering firms or even when I was a consultant, is there's a huge difference in between wildly successful engineers, business people, and those that are great employees. And you can be a successful, great employee, but are you going to be a C-suite? Are you going to be a vice president? Are you going to be a president? That takes more than somebody who knows how to watch a spreadsheet and do things. So one of the things that I find unique amongst the individuals who I would call wildly successful is they are very creative. They think differently than other people do. And one of the things I find specific about them is they always have something in their life that's not work. Right? They have something that's not, um, hey, I'm just going to go home and read nonfiction. I'm going to go home and read more about my job and try to advance myself. That's important. And don't get me wrong, I do that kind of stuff too. I'm a PhD in freaking physics. I study the stuff. But one thing I have noticed is they always have some kind of hobby. They read fiction novels. They play creative games. They do things that help them think creatively in some fashion, or at least keep a mindset where you can think out of the box. So why do a channel about reading or role playing games and kind of a hybrid of the two? I mean, it started off being sort of a book channel and it kind of grew into books and role playing. And well, the point is, I do both, and so that's just sort of who I am. And I'm not sure you would call me wildly successful, but I play in some interesting circles. So but the thing about other people who have been far, far, far more successful than me, and we're talking multi millionaires, billionaires, is they still do things like this. They still read fiction books. They still, I won't say they don't play role playing games, but they do things that are not solely aimed at purely career advancement. And it's usually something to help exercise the brain and keep the brain active and doing things creatively instead of just, oh, hey, how was that done the last time? Well, great, let's just repeat that, right? Not just wash, rinse, repeat. It's people who come up with new stuff and go with new directions. And that skill is not, you know, it's present in anybody when they're kids. Kids have a tendency to be that way. Adults, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. People are like, oh, you can't teach that. Well, okay, but you can beat it out of somebody. And you can have something that gets your brain going in that direction. And to me, sitting at home reading another self-help book, all of which kind of sound alike to me, reading another nonfiction book where somebody's spewing forth facts, which are great, that's fine. But reading something that gets me thinking, reading something that gets me going, I never looked at something that direction. I'm not saying just fantasy books, but I read a lot of other books and other genres too that are just sort of fictional and fun. Um, and I do play a lot of role playing games, and I have for 40 years. But I think the interesting bit is when you have that outlet, when you have that, hey, I got to actually think my way out of this. That translates into the way you approach a lot of problems at your day job. As the chief technology officer for a company, I do have to look at spreadsheets. I do have to look at, hey, we got to stick to the tech roadmap. We can't just go play in the sandbox. We do have to have a direction we're going. But when we're stuck and we're like, okay, here's a problem we're trying to solve, and there's not sort of an off the shelf, grab it and stick it in solution. You've got to come up with something new. If you want to unseat an existing incumbent company, you got to come at stuff from a new angle. You can't just be like, oh, hey, we can do that too, only we do it, a little bit better. Okay, there's a place for that. But if you want to revolutionize stuff, if you want to be the group that just takes over and runs with stuff, you got to be creative. And if you want to live in a world where AI is taking over jobs, you got to understand how to think differently than the stuff everybody else can do, because everybody else is going to do that cheaper and better than you are, or there's an incumbent you have to come in and overtake, and that's really hard to do. So I do this because it helps me stay creative, and I've always just kind of done this, and I've never really talked about it. But now I've got kids that are sort of middle school and upper end of elementary school, about to go into middle school, and it's important to me for them to stay creative. And it hit me. I'm like, it'd be really nice if more people could kind of get together and have that experience. And when I was growing up, there were, and even when I was in my 20s, people would read. When I was in my 30s, you'd see people with books. I'm in my early 50s, and you don't see that anymore. I understand Kindles exist and people read on that, but I don't think I was looking at statistics. People do not read fiction books the way they used to, even including Audible. So if you throw Audible into the mix, you're still not consuming as many fiction books as they once did. I don't care how you consume it, whether it's reading a hard copy, reading a Kindle version, or audiobook. Fiction helps you get in a mindset that becomes creative and does extend to other periods parts of your life. Role playing games, the day after I play a role playing game, are some of the more creative days of my life, my career, and I think those things help. It certainly gives you a break from your daily life, right? It gives you a break from all the stresses and strains of your job. And yeah, spending time with my kids does that too. And somebody's going to go, oh, go to the gym. All that works, okay, but it does not give you the brain exercise that these kinds of things do. And exercising your brain matters just as much as exercising your body. Otherwise, with modern medicine, we can live longer than we ever have before. What if your brain decays out, right? So you got to keep that thing going too. You got to pay attention to that. And mental health is important. That's why I do this, is to say, look, let's have a friendly place we can all come together and remember what it was like when we picked up these things and actually read them, and then went and talked to other people who read them and said, hey, I really enjoyed that. What'd you like about it? Hey, I was rereading. I'm still in the process of rereading. I'm just about finished rereading this one. It's a book from the '80s, but one of the best written books about potential global war I've ever, fictional global war I've ever seen. And talking to people about that, it gives you that sense of shared experience in a community and a shared history that you have with people that you don't kind of get any other way. And yeah, I know watching football, watching baseball, that's a shared experience too. But for life of me, I don't remember who won the Super Bowl 3 years ago. I remember some of the halftime shows, but I don't remember who won the game. I don't really care. Probably Kansas City in this decade because they're sort of always there. But those are the sorts of things that are there but different. This is good for your brain, and I'd like to spend part of my whatever time I have left on this silly planet helping people remember what it's like to both be a kid and use that imagination and get out of the box and do a little more thinking. And that does translate into helping your career, especially in a world where AI is going to take over and get rid of a lot of jobs that are not the creative ones. So let's foster that creativity. Let's get back in the mode of doing it. If there's another way to foster creativity, I'd love to hear it. Bring it on. Throw it in the comments. Drop me a direct message, whatever platform you see this on. I'm one of the easiest people on the planet to kind of find. But click like, subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're on, do whatever it is. If you don't like what I had to say, I'm sure somebody will tell me that too. I never have to tell people to leave a negative comment. It always seems to happen. But everybody have a great night. And hey, pick up a book and read it. What's the worst that can happen? You find one you like, right?